Hello and welcome to another video on the RC Biker YouTube channel. If you find this video useful, please make sure you hit the red subscribe button down below so you can see more RC content and bike content coming soon. So in this video we're going to be looking at how to start a Nitro engine after it's been sat for some time. So I'm here using an Hobao Hyper 7. This model is from around 2010, 2012 roughly, and I'm told that this engine hasn't been started for 5 years, which is quite a significant amount of time. I did do a video a couple of weeks ago using the HPI Pulse 4.6 and also the Nanda Racing MB5, so if you haven't checked that video out, please watch it. But those haven't been started for 2 or 3 years. This one is 5 years, so a little bit longer. So I'm just going to talk through what I would do to get this engine started, and hopefully it'll be of some help to you to get your Nitro car started if it hasn't been used for a while. Steps in this tutorial can also be used and applied to a car that you're struggling to get started, because all the processes really are the same. We're going to be starting it in the way we start any Nitro car, but we're just going to be doing a couple of extra steps just to make sure that the car's ready to go and make sure that it fires up easily. So first thing we're going to do is check the electronics. So we're going to switch on our transmitter and we're going to switch on the radio, and we're just going to make sure that the throttle is working and the steering is working, and make sure that the reverse switches are not set, or if they need to be set, make sure they are set. So in other words, make sure that the carb is opening as you would expect it to, and make sure that the steering is working correctly. Okay. Now when you're starting any engine, you need to keep in mind that it needs 3 things. It needs fuel, it needs air, and it needs heat. Okay, so in regards to the fuel, depending on how you put your engine, your car away, we need to make sure that we're running fresh fuel. Okay, so I've got some fresh 25% nitro, and nitro fuel does go bad. If you've left fuel in the tank after a long time, you need to empty it out and maybe even remove the tank and wash it out, because what happens is over time the nitro fuel goes like jelly, which can obviously cause blockages in the fuel tank and also in the fuel lines as well. So it's important that we make sure that all of the lines are clear. So I don't have that problem with this car because he's put it away very clean. So I'm going to start by filling up the tank. Okay, so we've got fuel in the tank. Next thing I'm going to do is remove my air filter and just make sure that the carb opening gap is set correctly. So we're looking for about a gap of 1 to 2 millimeters depending on the engine. Yeah, Mach 28 engines we usually run approximately 1 millimeter gap, again depending on the engine. So just going to check that that's got the correct carb opening gap there. That looks good. If the air filter is not clean, clean it. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is check the glow plug. So you remember I said to you that on a Nitro engine we need to make sure we have heat. Okay, so on Nitro engine the heat obviously comes from the glow plug. We're going to remove the glow plug and check it. On the igniter we're going to check that we've got a nice bright red glow. Now while I'm here, I'm going to give the engine a little bit of fuel directly into the carburetor, just directly on top of the piston, and that's just going to help get the engine started. So once that's in there, I'm just going to give it a few pulls, and that just gets the fuel around the engine. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm going to remove the tube off the exhaust pipe and I'm going to blow into it, and that's going to help us get some fuel through the fuel lines and into the carburetor. And now I'm going to replace the glow plug. And I'm going to give it a few more pulls just to get the fuel around the engine. Okay, good. So going back to what I said at the start then, engine needs 3 things to start. It needs fuel, needs air, and it needs heat. So we've checked all 3 things. We've filled the tank up. The tank is now filled with fresh nitro fuel, and we've primed the engine. So we've given fuel directly on top of the piston, ready to ignite. We've checked that it's got air, so we've made sure that the carb gap is a suitable gap open, which it is, and we've made sure that it's got heat. We've made sure that the glow plug is working correctly. So I'm going to get ready now to start the engine and fire this one up for the very first time since I've owned it, and the first time in 5 years, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so as you can see, the engine started relatively easy there. It just required a little bit more priming, so even though I had put fuel directly on top of the piston, it just needed a little bit more priming just to get the engine started. And I also raised up the engine trim a little bit, so I gave the car a little bit more air, the engine a little bit more air. But apart from that, it's pretty easy. I just took a little bit of time then just to make sure everything was working, and I'll need to give it a little bit of a tune as well at some point. But apart from that, started up pretty sweet. Doesn't really matter how long you leave an engine for, really. The processes are exactly the same, and to be honest, that engine started easier than some engines I've had new. So it's just one of those things. Just because you've left an engine for a while doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be any more difficult. But following the steps in this video should help you to get the engine started easily without tons and tons of pulling on the pull start. So I hope this video came in useful. If you found it useful, please hit the red subscribe button down below, and also turn on the notifications bell so that you get notified as soon as I upload a new and exciting video. Thanks very much. Take care for now.